Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Dre Show, everyone. It is Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. Thanks for tuning into the show today to hear all the relevant, groundbreaking news here in the United States and around the world. The only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Don't forget to hit that like button and follow the show. Hit that notification tab and share with as many people as possible so we can help get this truth out here. Let's get ready now, though, for the best hour that radio has to offer. Uncensored and ready to go. You know, I want to start off talking today about the blatant mental illness that exists in our society today. And what do I mean by that? I saw this footage on TikTok just yesterday. And as many of you know, Donald Trump, RFK Jr., other members of the Health and Human Resources and Services came out and basically were saying that there is a link between Tylenol consumption during pregnancy and the risk of autism in that child. And what women on TikTok are now doing, just to, I guess, spite Donald Trump and RFK Jr., members of the medical community, they're now taking Tylenol in these TikTok videos as if it's something that is to be proud of. Now, they have no idea, these women have no idea what they're doing to their bodies. First of all, their bodies are at risk, too, by taking Tylenol. I don't recommend anyone taking it, actually, unless it's a dire situation. But we actually saw Tylenol put out a tweet in 2017 stating exactly what Donald Trump and RFK Jr. were stating just the other day. That they do not recommend that pregnant women take Tylenol. They literally said that in a tweet. Now they're kind of doubling down. We never said this. Well, actually, you did. It's out there from 2017. You'll all see it eventually, I'm sure. But isn't it odd that you would put your own child's health at risk just to spite Donald Trump because you hate him so much? Like I said, the freak show is still much alive and well in America, folks. The idea that you would go out and do something that could possibly harm your child, taking a pharmaceutical drug that may have a risk to changing their lives forever, and the onset of autism, which is rampant now in the country. You think you're spiting Donald Trump by doing that? Putting your own child at risk? This is stupid. Just like when RFK was saying, he's not going to recommend the COVID shot. You had people going, I'm getting the COVID shot. How stupid are these people? Do they not read anything? I'm getting ahead of myself. Of course they don't. They don't read a damn thing. They don't want to learn a damn thing. They have their narrative and they stick with it. And it's really sad, though. Because, again, it is going to affect their child in the long term. I don't hope it does, but, there's a very good chance that it can. And I outlined everything for you in yesterday's show about the way Tylenol could induce the onset of autism. And, of course, how the vaccines themselves, how they're taken now, can actually do exactly the same. So listen to yesterday's show. Take a listen to that. It was really good information. I hope you'll share that at least with some people and explain it to some people. But now I've got this new article in the Epoch Times, and it's now suggesting that the FDA is considering independent evaluation for DNA contamination in the COVID-19 shots. Wonderful, as we haven't heard enough of nonsense about these COVID-19 shots. And I say shots because I don't believe they're actually vaccines, because they don't actually work as a vaccine is supposed to work. Now, the FDA is now mulling over conducting its own evaluation from the levels of this DNA contamination that's left over in the COVID-19 shots. So now, before the panel's unanimous recommendation during the meeting that the CDC roll back the COVID-19 vaccine recommendations, that's what RFK Jr. was doing in D.C. when he was at the hearing with the genius senators, right? Bernie Sanders, all the other schmucks that were encouraging him to recommend the shot and, of course, keep the vaccine child schedule for vaccinations in place. And RFK Jr. says, I'm not going to go through and recommend a product that isn't even safety tested. And he's absolutely right. There's absolutely zero safety testing, both short-term and long-term, with the COVID-19 shot. That's just the truth of the matter. It was about 2 months worth. All the animals died in it, and anyone that got sick in the study actually was kicked out of the research, by the way. That way they didn't have to explain what the shot was doing. And they pushed it out, they distributed it, and the FDA came in and basically said, we who sit on this panel say that this is fine for emergency use authorization. But the problem with emergency use authorization is that no other alternatives can help stop the spread of COVID, which is why you saw them come out against hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, quercetin and using zinc, upping your vitamin C levels, upping your vitamin D3 levels, taking things like molecular iodine, all these things, turmeric, all these things that boost the immune system. They said simply, don't do this. And that's why it was difficult to get ivermectin at that time, even though it's been used and it's actually, I think it's Nobel Prize winning in its implementation. That's how positive it was. And they came out and smeared it as, horse medicine or whatever they try to say it was. Totally unfounded. But this is how they got to do the EUA. This is how they got to put it out under emergency use authorization. They said, hey, there's nothing else we can do. We've got to push out this vaccine. And some people got in line and took it. I don't understand why you would take something of which there was no safety testing, has nothing to back that it even worked. And of course, later on, we found out it didn't work. It doesn't stop the spread of transmission. Doesn't even stop the symptoms. In fact, you get sick when you take this more times than less. So now we've got them looking at the vaccine contamination of DNA. And of course, the concerns about the growing evidence of higher than allowed levels of DNA in these shots. Now, the spread of the vaccine beyond the injection sites, the long-term persistence of messenger ribonucleic acid, that's RNA, are a key part of the Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna shots. So anyone that's taken these shots, again, I told you before, if you've taken these shots and you're fine right now, you have nothing wrong, do not take another one. The more of these shots you take, the more of this garbage that's going to be in your system. And by the way, we still today have no idea what's even in these shots. That should concern each and every one of you. Now, the CDC has now described the mRNA technology as the entity teaching cells how to make copies of the spike protein. So what happens is, with this mRNA technology, your body becomes a host to produce the spike proteins of that particular virus. In this case, it was SARS-CoV-2. So now your body produces these spike proteins on its own, and in the end, it attacks the body. You actually reduce the, the safeguard of your immune system here. That's what happens. You weaken your immune system by taking these shots. So after the mRNA delivers the instructions to your cells and break it down and get rid of it. That's what they're trying to say here. That's the idea behind it, of course. But now they're saying, we have a range of things on the mRNA platforms. This is a gentleman named Retsef Levy, who sits on the chair of the advisory panel's COVID-19 immunization work group. He now says we have a range of things on this mRNA platform that really suggests that it doesn't work as intended. And I'm going to argue with him for a second. I think it's working exactly as intended. I told you before, I think this was a bioweapon released. I do. You're telling me that Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, BioNTech, Moderna had no idea this vaccine had no effect on preventing the transmission or spread of COVID, yet they released it anyway? Levi said, citing issues such as the spread of spike proteins and the mRNA into various parts of the body and DNA contamination. So what is DNA contamination? They're referring to what is called residual DNA. That means there's leftover DNA fragments from the host cells. Remember, your body's now a host site now for this. Your body's producing these spike proteins of this particular virus that they spliced out under a microscope. They put into the vaccine, or the shot, I should say. And in the end, it may remain in the body, of course, because you're not getting rid of it now. And now you're posing risks of immunogenicity, and the risk of oncogenicity. That's cancer cells, folks, just so we're all clear of that. And what does it say now in the remainder of the article? Well, it's saying now that autoimmune disorders are rising in the people that take these shots. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. You really can't make this stuff up at all. So now the DNA would integrate into the human genome. This is the best part. And create autoimmunity problems. This is what's been told of the Epoch Times. The FDA, in a brief statement in 2023, said that they were not aware of this sequence. So you're telling me this panel approved a product without knowing the effects 2 years into it that would leave residual DNA in the body, which could uptick some of the 100 different autoimmune disorders, and of course, cancer. That's what oncology is, cancer. And there's no shortage of, obviously, understanding that these spike proteins are deadly. I read to you the studies as a result of the COVID shot just the other day. And we've got an uptick of myocarditis by 2,800%. That's inflammation of the myocardium in the heart. Cancers, what we just talked about, particularly turbo cancer. We're seeing cancer spread much, much quicker in people that have taken the COVID shot. And the instances of getting cancer is anywhere from 300 to 900%. Infertility in both sexes, up 500%. Miscarriages, 300%. That'd be women that have taken the shot while pregnant. We have neurological disorders, up 1,000%. Demyelinating disorders, that'd be the myelin sheath that protects your neurons in the brain and other areas, like your spine, up 1,000%. Multiple sclerosis, up 600%. Guillain-Barre syndrome, up 500%. Pulmonary embolisms. You know why there's so many strokes happening nowadays in people? 400% increase. And HIV, up 500%. Your immune system shot when you take this, folks. So if you've, again, I said this before and I'll say it again. If you've taken the shot, nothing's happened to you, you're fine, you're still healthy. I'm glad, I'm very happy for you. But you need to get this garbage out of your system somehow. You can't let this just meander in your system. And again, there's different ways to do it. I used to take a product, and I still do actually, called Masterpiece, just as it sounds. You can look it up. And it actually removes the contaminants, anything in your body that's not supposed to be there. It detoxes the body completely. I've even heard people, and I recommended this yesterday on the show, look up what Dr. Brian Ardis has said about this COVID-19 shot. He actually recommends that people use nicotine patches that will actually, again, extract these compounds out of your body. I'll let you look at it. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your body or anything. But you should look into ways in, again, detoxing your body, getting rid of this nonsense so you don't have longer health effects that can be negative, of course. And again, we have no idea what the long-term effects of this are. That's why it takes 10 years to create a vaccine. We want to know what the long-term effects of taking a shot would do to the body. And we don't have that information. It's only been out for 4 years. So we have no idea what it does even long-term. But we're seeing, and again, based on the work that Edward Dow did and the study I talked to you yesterday said in Slay News, that there are 5,000 people a week in America that are dying as a result of the COVID-19 shots. And it's backed up by insurance companies as well. You can take that to the bank with you. He does great research, by the way. Look at that article in Slay News. It's shocking. No one's talking about it. So please share that information with other people. That's the reality of these shots. 5,000 people in just America alone are dying as a result of some type of ailment related to the COVID-19 shot. So with over 1 billion doses, this is how the article continues on, of this mRNA vaccine administered, no safety concerns related to the sequence of or amount of residual DNA have been identified. That's what the spokesmoron said. Now, with regard to the FDA-approved mRNA vaccines, this is again available scientific evidence that supports the conclusion that they are safe and effective. Remember Fauci came out? They're safe and effective, 95% success rate, then it was 90, then it was 60, then it was 50, then it was 40, and then it was, well, it's going to slow down the symptoms you get. Well, I'm sorry, that's not a vaccine. That's something completely different. And how do you even know that it stops the, sequence of any type of symptoms you may get? How do you know it's quelling the symptoms? With 2 months worth of safety testing, how the hell would you know that? That it wouldn't be worse? Or anything. How do we know that the spike protein isn't causing the symptoms? We have no idea, folks. That's a problem. Now, it goes on to say, while the sequence has not been detected in Moderna, that'd be Bill Gates of Hell's vaccine, by the way, other testing has found DNA, this is the DNA contamination after the fact of these cells, release the DNA, in both Pfizer and Moderna shots. There you go. There you go. Kevin McKernan and other researchers in a paper published on September 6th said that they found levels of residual DNA in vaccines from other companies that were higher than the regulatory limit set by the FDA. So why is there not a withdrawal? That's the big question. Why hasn't RFK Jr. come out and says, we're pulling this shot. We're pulling the shot. We're not letting anyone take it until there's been some real safety testing done with this and that we understand what this mRNA technology does. That's what I want to know. Why are we still letting it stay in pharmacies so anyone can go in and take it? So again, why not pull it off the market? Like any other biologic, any other type of medicine that has found this contamination. That's the big question. Why isn't Pfizer pulling it? Why isn't Moderna pulling it? Or BioNTech? I think Johnson & Johnson already had to take theirs off the market because it was so toxic when people were taking it. 2.6 million people on the VAERS list. That'd be the Vaccine Adverse Effects Research Study. 2.6 million people on it already. They have claimed they've been injured somehow by the vaccine. And then you got to think about the people that have been dying from this. They're not going to be on there because they're dead. They can't file a lawsuit. It's unbelievable, folks. Unbelievable how they push this on you. They were told you got to take it. If you want to go to work, if you want to do this, you want to see your grandparents again. This is so ridiculous and so nefarious. Operation Warp the Seed here. It's beyond me that anyone would take this shot again. I don't know why they're not pulling it. I'm glad they're at least looking into it and seeing these effects, but it should be pulled. Absolutely, in and of itself. Should be pulled. And I'll let you figure out the rest of this. It's in the Epoch Times, folks, in today's article. So, unbelievable that we're finding now that the gene editing, this is what it is, it's a gene editing technology in these shots that gets you to produce the spike protein. Awful stuff here. Awful. I can't even believe it sometimes when I have to read some of this nonsense. But that's the truth, so please get that out there as quickly as you can. Oh, by the way, the FBI, this is in Zero Hedge. FBI confirms the targeted attack at the Dallas ICE facility finds bullet with anti-ICE measures. Don't they always find these bullets now? The casings always with these anti-whomever they're targeting? Nonsense written on the casing, as if they just sit there and they just do all this nonsense. I'm not saying this didn't happen, but I'm just saying, isn't it just ironic that this is the way they can tie these people into this now? What's written on the casing of bullets now? FBI agent in charge, Joe Rothrock, told reporters that the ICE facility shooting in Dallas was a targeted attack, and that agents at the scene recovered rounds with anti-ICE messages. Rothrock reminded reporters that this is the most recent example of a targeted violence, and he referred to the July 4th attack on ICE in the state of Texas. Now, Kash Patel got on X this morning and also confirmed what was happening here. He said this morning, just before 7 a.m. local time, an individual fired multiple rounds at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility, killing one person and wounding several others before taking his own life. The FBI, DHS, ATF are on the ground with Dallas PD and with state authorities. So now, while this investigation is ongoing, the initial review of the evidence shows that the ideological motive behind this attack, one of the unspent shell casings recovered, was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. More updates will be forthcoming. Okay, great. Listen, I'm so sick of this nonsense when we have these killers, we find out they commit suicide right after. We need to know what these people are on. This is what I got to tell you. The idea that some fringe lunatic is going out and just doing this, and then they kill themselves. Obviously, they have mental problems. I'm not denying that. But we need to know if these people are on we need a toxicology report to know if these people are on any type of psychotropic drugs, whom they've been in contact with. Are these people set up to do this? Are they encouraged to do this by somebody? We need to know all this information about the deceased. We still, to this day, it's been over a year since, July, 13th, 2024, when the attempt at President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania occurred. We still know nothing about Thomas Matthew Crooks. Why not? Why do we know nothing about this guy? How was he able to get on the roof? How did the Secret Service not monitor the roof? Where were the drones that should have been in the area? We have no answers to who these people are. We hear about them. We hear how, what they're like, and then that's it. So whom is the shooter? Is this person on psychotropic drugs? Were they, mentally ill? What about them? This is how we can actually prevent this from happening, by identifying who these people are. But we're seeing time and time again, these young people committing these horrific acts. We obviously, and look, I'm seeing a picture right now. They have the casing on the ground, and it says anti-ice on the bullet casing. What are they, drawing a blueprint for them to come and get these people? Well, we saw the same thing with the Charlie Kirk thing. We're told that the casings have a pro-trans, anti-fascists written on the casings, and it's just perfectly left behind so they could be found. We got a problem with mental illness in this country, folks. We really do. We most certainly do. And we need to figure out, again, who these people are, who they're associated with, and we need to know if they're on anything. If they have a medication that's causing depression or suicidal thoughts, they go out and commit these horrific acts against people. Because now we have an ICE agent dead. We have others that are wounded. And again, we see this attack again on the feds. This is what we're seeing right now. So we don't know, again, if this guy's Antifa. We don't know if he's... Who is this person? We don't even have a name yet. We know nothing about these people. But we know that we have a problem with mental illness in this country, folks. And we've got to look into what these kids are taking at a young age, these drugs that they're on their entire life in many cases, for hyperactivity or ADD or ADHD or anything. We need to know what these kids are on, and we should know and identify that it could lead to, again, these homicidal, suicidal thoughts that they go out and commit these crimes. So, ICE right now, they got a target on them. And again, it's because of the rhetoric being pushed largely by the left, too. That doesn't help at all. Journalist Andy No noted that this is the second now shooting for an ICE facility in Texas now. The other one was an ambush back in July and was allegedly committed by the North Texas Antifa cell. There you go. So we need to know the ties of this individual, whom he was working with, or if anyone was encouraging this. And we need to know, again, I want to know if these people are on anything. This is what I want to know. I know we got crazy people in this country, but the idea that somebody's just going to go out and try to kill a whole bunch of people, then themselves, is a pretty intense, I'd have to say. Pretty intense. I wonder what the brain chemistry of these people are. Because I think we all have a right to know about this. But as of right now, 3 people were critically wounded. The one gunman was found dead on the roof nearby the immigration attorney's office. Authorities are still trying to investigate whether others may have been involved. And the incident happened around 7 a.m. at the ICE office in Dallas. Police and emergency crews were remaining on the scene with the Texas Department of Transportation cameras showing dozens of vehicles lining the access road. That's all we know as of right now. So we've got a problem, folks. We got a very big problem with, again, a lot of these drugs these kids take, and we need to know exactly what these groups are pushing, what they're planning. And how do we keep our citizenry safe? And of course, our federal agents who are doing their job, following federal law, how do we keep them safe as well to try to prevent these horrific acts from happening? All right, let's move on. The New York Post. We know that Trump yesterday spoke at the UN speech for the General Assembly in New York City, and some interesting things were discussed. I don't think there's any shortage of us understanding that. But Trump, first of all, he came out, he slammed the UN nations for their open border policies, telling the heads of the state that your countries are going to hell because of these open borders. He's not wrong about that, by the way. He slammed the body's empty words and questions its entire existence. Now, again, the UN is just a globalist front. That's all it really is. I mean, there's nothing that comes from it. Nothing positive comes from the UN. Just a bunch of people that come together in a conference and speak to each other. That's all it is. Just globalism in and of itself. It doesn't stop anything. Look at what's happening in Europe right now. Look what's happening in Russia. Look what's happening in all these conflicts. It's not stopping anything. It's just a way to, again, funnel money into a certain organization and push their narrative in various countries. That's all you're seeing right now. That's all you're seeing. And by the way, while you see that, that's why the European countries have had their borders flooded with illegals from North Africa, Central Africa. You're seeing people from the Middle East and Arab nations and other parts of the world just flood into these countries. But on a sort of due process. Now, the biggest issue I had with yesterday's UN Council meeting was simply that the remarks Trump made about the Ukraine war. It was really shocking to me to hear this, by the way, because as of just earlier, I thought Donald Trump was a man of peace. And now I'm looking at this article in the Washington Examiner. I heard this last night. I couldn't even believe it. But it says that Trump makes major Ukraine reversal, says it can win all of its territory back from Russia. Now, I sat there and I said, this has to be a joke. There's no way he said this. Oh, yeah, he said it. He said it, folks. So he went on to say, this is exactly what he said. He said, I think Ukraine, with the support of the EU, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. Now, Trump abandons his peace for more war, is really what's being said here. How did he come to this conclusion after 3.5 years? That the war can continue on? Doesn't make any sense at all to me, that he thinks that Ukraine could actually win this without the immense help from another nation. By the way, Trump also telling NATO countries they should shoot down Russian jets entering their airspace? Again, this is so asinine. This is what's going to be pushing us closer to a war, a hot war, between NATO and, of course, Russia. Again, I don't understand how he came to this position. Who is advising the president right now? This is what I want to know. Who is advising the president? Because whoever is not giving him the right information about this conflict. But again, here he was yesterday. This is through Forbes. This is what he had to say regarding his comments on Ukraine.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Would you back up NATO allies? You said that you thought that they should shoot down Russian aircraft. Would you back them up? Would the United States help them out in some way?
Depends on the circumstance, but it's been a terrible war, should have ended, and Russia should have stopped it. But they've been 3.5 years and they've gotten not so far. So we'll see what happens, but the other side can fight too, and they've proven that. Maybe it could be that Russia's a paper tiger. I don't know what they are, but 3.5 years of fighting and killing everybody, of killing 7,000 people a week for nothing. So it's a very sad situation, but most of you have seen the recent statement I put out a little while ago, and I'm glad you got it, but I feel that way. I really do feel that way.
Okay. Russia's a paper tiger? This is what we're getting from the President of the United States right now. Russia is a paper tiger. And it got even worse with Keith Kellogg and comments that he made just the other day. Take a listen to this.
And the casualty levels are enormous. When you add the casualties of Ukraine and Russia combined, these are young men and women who fought and died. The casualty rates are higher than we had in World War II. Think about that. So you think about the death and destruction, and that's why those of us who've served in the military and seen the damage that it can cause want to bring this to an end, just like President Trump does. And I really believe that. You want to bring this to an end, a just, reasonable end into the future. And hoping a year from now, at the next Independence Day, the 35th for Ukraine, the next prayer breakfast will probably follow that. It'll be a different Ukraine. It'll be a different place to be.
Okay. I don't know what world these guys are living in. I don't understand this. I know Keith Kellogg advises the president on several issues regarding this war, and of course what's happening in the Middle East. But here are the real numbers, just so we're all clear on this. Just for those of you that think that Ukraine is somehow winning or has a chance to win, I don't see it. I don't understand this. The real numbers are this. There's 1.7 to 1.8 million dead Ukrainians and 3 million wounded. Okay, there you go. Now, conversely, let's compare that to the Russian casualties. We know that there are roughly 150,000 dead Russians and 700,000 to 800,000 wounded. In World War II, 8.7 million just military men alone died of the Soviet Union. Soviet Russians died. 8.7 million. And 19 million civilian casualties. So roughly 28 million Soviet Russians had been killed in World War II. So maybe Keith Kellogg needs, a new calculator. I don't know. Maybe stop doing the Obama Common Core math, because he's just simply wrong on this. The numbers are nowhere near the casualties for the Soviets in World War II. That's just preposterous that he would even make that comparison right now. But as far as the remarks about a paper tiger, and they're saying, well, Russia, they should have taken it in a week. That's what Trump said, by the way. He said they should have taken it in a week. They didn't. Now it's 3.5 years. It's for nothing. And to me, I said it's not for nothing. They were simply asked by the ethnic Russian population in the Donbass region. Those would be the areas of the Donetsk, Luhansk region. It's in eastern Ukraine that borders Russia. They actually wanted to be annexed back into Russia, but Putin said no. And they had enough of being shelled by the Azov Battalion. Some of you may have heard of the Azov Battalion, but they were shelling and attacking ethnic Russians in this region. And Putin finally said, I've had enough. We're going to take back this land. We're going to protect our own people if this is going to continue on. Then, of course, you have the threats from Zelensky with joining NATO, which they're not supposed to be doing at all, because that can pose a massive risk to, obviously, the national security of Russia. So while they blame Putin for the quote-unquote invasion, which I wouldn't even call it an invasion, they're simply helping their own people that speak Russian, they're ethnically Russian, they believe that they are Russian, and they're being attacked by the Ukrainian Azov Battalion. That's what you're seeing right now. Or, you were seeing until this invasion took place. But here's the other problem here. Here's the other problem. You have to understand how Russia fights their wars. Now, Russia's capabilities obviously can totally diminish anything that Ukraine has. That's just the truth of the matter. They have very advanced weaponry. They have hypersonic missiles. They have Poseidon missiles. They have nuclear weapons. What is Ukraine going to do that could deter any of this? They haven't deterred them once this entire conflict. So what makes anyone think that's going to be a whole different place as of right now? There's nothing to support that. You have to understand how the Russians fight. They wear down their opponents. They wear them right down. They're just Russian all nonstop. They wear them down. That's why you're seeing Ukrainians fleeing into Poland right now, because they don't want to go get involved in this war. That's why you had to see teenagers being taken off the streets in throat of this conflict. You didn't hear about that in the legacy media, did you? But that's the truth of the matter. That's what was actually happening. That's why you have 1.7 to 1.8 million dead Ukrainians right now. Absolutely unbelievable. And by the way, President Trump's remarks are now going to likely reinvigorate this support for this war effort. We're told Donald Trump was a man of peace. I believed he was a man of peace when he ran. But now what we're seeing is NATO going to be involved in this conflict should this continue on, because he's encouraging it. He's still saying that we'll keep selling arms to NATO, and NATO can do whatever they want with it. So we really have a proxy war between NATO, which we're a part of, and Russia. We went from 12 nation states of NATO, which were supposed to expand to the east. Now we have, 30 some odd, if I'm not mistaken? And now Ukraine is asking to join. They allowed Finland and Sweden to join. The whole purpose was so that nobody neighboring Russia could have arms there. And that was the biggest idea. Why do you think we had the Cuban Missile Crisis? Why do you think we were so miffed that they were actually going to be Khrushchev was going to be sending nuclear weapons to Cuba? Do we really want nuclear weapons from another nation aimed at us from 90 miles away? Same thing goes with Ukraine. They want a non-NATO, demilitarized Ukraine. That's what he wants. There wasn't Putin that started this. This is something that started much, much long ago. And, I see this. We saw what was just recently stated at the false flag with the attack in Poland, where they said there was a drone attack by Russian drones, of course. And we now know that it was likely the Ukrainians, who also have fairly decent drone warfare, fixing the drones and actually sending them into the Poland airspace. But now we've got a country. By the way, I have a lot of admiration for Poland, for their sovereignty, for their national security, their national identity. I don't think Poland on its own would, again, go in there and attack Russia. That'd be extremely foolish, unless, of course, the United States backs it. But we're seeing these little confrontations taking place. And, of course, the big one was, well, he's going to take Poland next. And now you see this drone attack, this false flag. It's to take the bait, light the fire, extend this war much further. We don't want to stoke flames of this war. We want this to end. Now, Scott Ritter believes, by the way, great geopolitical analyst, believes that any incursion into Russia by a NATO-supplied Ukraine could be met with nuclear weapons, should that ever happen. I don't think it's going to happen. He doesn't surmise it's going to happen. But that's the reality of the situation. If you start to threaten the national security of Russia, within Russia, anything can happen. So the real question is, who is advising the president? Because this type of rhetoric of the United States to continue to sell arms to NATO, to give Ukraine the ability to bomb, just extends this conflict even more. And Russia has been clear that it will not end the war until its conditions with Ukraine have been met. Ukraine cannot join NATO, which it is really a de facto member right now. Look at it, everyone in NATO is backing them. Russia will annex, of course, the Donetsk, the Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and, of course, keep the Crimean Peninsula, which they took back in 2014, which is home to the Russian fleet. That's where they're located. And they want a demilitarized, they want a neutral Ukraine, and, of course, relief from sanctions and the unfreezing of their assets. That's what they want. Now, Putin also told his Security Council, this is another part that just drives me over the top here with this. It's not bad enough the war is continuing on. Of course, we're egging people on to go to war. But Putin said just yesterday, or a few days ago, rather, he told his Security Council that the New START treaty will not be renewed, which means that we're now going to be in a arms race, and of course that will proliferate. This is where we find ourselves right now. This is where we find ourselves. Now, the AP noted yesterday, says Putin says that Russia will abide by the nuclear arms deal with the United States for 1 year after it expires. Now, it's going to expire in February of 2026, but we're supposed to come back and negotiate and, of course, sign it again. But now there's talks that we're not going to be doing that. And we think this is going to result in some type of peace. The article goes on to start off by saying that the Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday declared his readiness to adhere to the nuclear arms limits for 1 more year until the last remaining nuclear pact with the United States that February expires. He urged Washington to follow suit. So who's really pushing for peace here? Who's really doing it? Is it Putin or is it Donald Trump? Now, Putin also said that the New START agreement, which was first signed in 2010, which was said to expire, would now be destabilizing and could fuel proliferation of nuclear weapons, because right now they only have a certain number of nuclear weapons in which they can produce. When this treaty goes away, they can start doing whatever the hell they want. Now, his televised remarks came at a time of heightened tensions between Russia and the West, and with concerns rising that fighting in Ukraine could spread beyond its borders, which I don't think is going to happen. I think if that was Putin's intention, he would have done it much, much long ago. He wouldn't wait 3.5 years to take a country and then try to go in and attack another country. Just simply isn't going to happen. Now, arms control advocates have long voiced concern about the treaty's looming expiration and, of course, the lack of dialogue to secure a successor deal, warning about the possibility of a new nuclear arms race, which we saw before, right? And increased risk of a nuclear conflict. Of course it is. Of course it is. Now, the New START that was originally signed, right, in 2010 between President Barack Obama and, of course, Russian counterpart Dmitry Medvedev, limits each country to no more than 1,550 deployed nuclear warheads and 700 deployed missiles and bombers. The pact also stipulates the need for on-site inspections to verify compliance. So we would send in our inspectors, they would send in theirs to monitor the facility, to monitor that we're upholding our end of the deal. Although now we've come to find out that inspections were halted in 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic and never resumed. Isn't COVID a great thing, folks? It's bringing so much joy to the world. So now the treaty was originally supposed to expire in 2021, but it was extended for 5 more years. So this is where we find ourselves now. Putin said that we believe the measure will only be viable if the United States acts in a similar manner. I don't know that we will. I really don't. I don't know what to make of this. All I know is things will not be safe or less safe should this continue on. If we're allowing Russia to go with their arms race and push what they can push, and again, they have superior missiles as compared to us. Just want to throw that out there. It's much more advanced than what we have. Now, we compete with them on a nuclear level, yes. But now they can put warheads on these missiles. They have nuclear weapons they can put on their submarines with their Poseidon missiles. I mean, it's really, really intense what they can do with their army and their capabilities right now. We don't have it. We can't go toe-to-toe with them in a conflict. And again, I don't think we can beat them in a drone warfare race. I don't think we can do that. So we're really pushing people to their limits right now. And it's definitely not a good thing that this is happening. So I wanted to share that all with you. I want you to understand what's happening in the foreign front right now, because things are not looking good to end this war. And of course, we have the looming risk of nuclear conflict between us and, of course, Russia. All right. So the other day, I talked to you just briefly about the 4 Americans that were killed in Lebanon, including 3 children, killed in this Israeli strike, of course. And I wanted to highlight this because it's not getting any media attention either. But these are American citizens that were killed in a sovereign country, of course, and nothing is said about it. I haven't seen a Donald Trump tweet. I haven't heard anything from Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, and, of course, Marco Rubio. Nothing from any of them. Not one word about it. So some of you know there's an Israeli drone strike on Lebanon and in a town called Bint Jabal on Sunday, killing 5 people, including 3 children. And according to Lebanon's health ministry, all 3 children and their father were U.S. citizens in this attack. The strike by Israel, which targeted a motorcycle and a vehicle, came as another violation of a U.S. brokered truce between Israel and Lebanon, and of course, Hezbollah. Though Israel claimed that the attack was killed one Hezbollah member, it admitted the civilians were also killed. So what does this tell you? What does this tell you about what's going on here? We know for example, that they use these AI drones. The situation, of course, allows them to have a certain number of casualties based on whom they're targeting. Because, again, it's so advanced, it could identify someone as that person of interest. And so long as there's no more than 100 people extra, that be including civilians, people not whom they're targeting, could die, then the strike will go on. And again, everything is calculated before the drone goes out. So once the drone goes out, it essentially is going to perform the actions that the commanders or the supervisors are telling it to do. And we'll talk about how AI is connected to what's happening in America here with Palantir and Oracle and another company called Cyberwall as well. So is it Lebanese children that poses an existential threat to the Israeli entity, is what the Lebanese Speaker of the Parliament, Barry, has said, according to the state-run national news agency. Or is it the behavior of this entity in killing without deterrence or accountability that constitutes a real threat to international peace and security? Now, Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam has now described the attack as a blatant crime against civilians and a message of intimidation targeting our people returning to their villages in the south. So now the international community must condemn Israel in the strongest terms for its repeated violations of international resolutions and international law. There's supposed to be a ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel right now. And yet we still see this seven-front war where they're still bombing and killing people who are not even in Hezbollah, whom they're targeting. It says here that the months-long war between Hezbollah and Israel has killed some 4,000 people in Lebanon and displaced residents across southern and eastern Lebanon. So this is what the reality of the Middle East is, folks. Now, under the Washington brokered ceasefire, both the militant Hezbollah of Lebanon and Israel were supposed to withdraw their forces from southern Lebanon and, of course, halt these strikes against each other. Israel forces have now continued to occupy 5 Lebanese hilltop points by the border. The IDF regrets any harmful or uninvolved individuals and operatives. It operates to minimize harm as much as possible, is what they said. The IDF military said in a statement on Sunday, and that the incident is under review. But they know they could do this. I know they could do this because I know they could do this. And that's just the reality of what's happening with this drone warfare, this AI drone warfare. It's all artificial intelligence, folks. So here's what happens. You have a company like Palantir, which is owned by Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, both very, very pro-Israel, pro-Zionist. And then you have Oracle, Larry Ellison's company, by the way, who's now going to take control of the algorithms of TikTok. So not only does it threaten civil liberties of all Americans, these companies have close ties to Israel, especially with the Israeli military. And just so we're very clear, both of these companies are CIA cutouts. They are. They're getting contracts with the CIA, and this is what's happening right now. This is who's helping aid and abet this process with this technology. So here's what's happening. You have this technology that's used to target civilians. Okay, we know that the AI lavender is what it's called in gospel. They have this 1 to 100 kill ratio. So what that means is if there's a crowd of people and the drone can survey the region, they can identify the person of interest, that one person, say it's someone from Hezbollah or Hamas or whomever it is. If the explosion of the drone strike will not kill more than 100 people that are not this person of interest, it'll go on with the attack. So say there's 75 people around this one person, and they know how big the blast will be and the explosion and the death toll. If it's not going to kill more than 100 people, it'll go ahead with that strike. And that's why you saw that with those UN aid workers. I think it was 7 of them. They got killed in that drone strike. Because again, if they're in that vicinity where that person of interest is, and that bomb goes off, it's going to go through with the order. Again, you can't stop it once it's been set. That's what I've been told, at least. You can't do anything about it. So that's why they were calling the IDF, even though they checked in with them, because they can't stop it. Once it's in effect, it's going to go in effect. It's going to carry out the orders. So we've got Palantir that goes out, it interprets the data, right? And then we have Oracle that, again, there's the other tie. It supplies Israel with its entire database. And of course, it now controls and stores the database, everything they need on there. So the two are working with each other. It's kind of this synergistic program of which we see. So that is happening right now. But also we have Microsoft, we have Dell, are also part of this technology push from the United States. And again, they're working directly with the Israeli military. None of these people, by the way, are registered under the FARA Act, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. They're not in that. You have hundreds of Americans that have been killed in these drone strikes, and nothing is being done about it. No one is held accountable. Nothing's happening. Nobody says a damn thing about it. Why isn't Trump tweeted about this? We have 4 Americans that were just killed in Lebanon. That doesn't bother anybody? It should. Oh, by the way, the number of confirmed killed civilians in Gaza now is, of the people that have been killed, and by the way, it's much higher than the 65 or so thousand people they're claiming. It's much higher than that. But they're claiming of that, 83% of those that have been killed are innocent civilians, men, women, and children alike. But that makes sense if you have technology that is going to, again, kill someone with these 1 to 100 ratios. That's why you're seeing the numbers kind of obsolete, that Hamas is still alive and well. And again, you're killing all these civilians in these unprovoked bombings. And again, no one's saying anything about it. We're talking about sending $6.4 billion to Israel now for this very war. We just sent, I think, $8 billion back in February. And you and I are paying for it all. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Oh, by the way, I wanted to share this with you too, by the way. I saw this. And I wanted to share this. We talked about the TikTok takeover that took place last Friday. And, of course, Larry Ellison's going to be in charge of the algorithms and, of course, the database control. But also sitting on that board is going to be Rupert Murdoch's family, his son Lachlan, who is the CEO of News Corporation. Again, very pro-Israel. He's also going to sit on that board. So it's just like a who's who of, the Zionist-controlled people that are coming out in support of this. And, of course, will control these algorithms. And again, TikTok is already starting to ban some of this information already that you're seeing in the Middle East of people that can go out and record it. And now they're going to put a big lockdown on that freedom of speech because they got to target the Gen Z population, who is very, very much anti-Zionist and, of course, doesn't support what Israel's doing. They don't like what they're seeing. They don't like it at all. And while you can chastise those that are coming out and saying, free Palestine, the idea, though, is that we should not be wanting to see civilians being starved, tortured, killed day by day, their homes destroyed, they have no access to food, water, seldom electricity is in the region, and the medical supplies. They have no access, really, to much medical supplies. And nothing is being done about it. No, it's being talked about being transformed into a Middle Eastern Riviera, of course. That's how we're talking about people of a certain region that are being bombarded day by day. And that bombardment is not holding up. And I told you it's not going to stop until, of course, Netanyahu gets what he wants. And we're aiding and abetting all of it, by the way. Just thought I'd share that with you. One other point of interest, I want to talk about this before the show ends. We've got a couple minutes remaining. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can. I wanted to go over it just the other day, but I didn't have time. I didn't have time yesterday, so I'm going to go over it right now. This is in Yahoo News from the Idaho Capital Sun. It says that Idaho legislators are now participating in 50 states, One Israel conference paid for by the Israeli government. I know some of you are listening going, what is this all about? What's going on here? Well, and again, there's basically nothing on this anywhere I've looked. But this is a thing. And again, I've seen the picture of the 250 American legislators from the state governments that have gone to this trip in Israel. But here we are. We're focusing on Idaho's. So we have 5 Idaho legislators that have participated in a bipartisan conference for American state legislators this week. Again, this was taken last week. And it was sponsored by Israel amid the ongoing Israeli-Hamas war. And it gives a list of these people that nobody knows about. It's not important, really. But the Boise State Public Radio report first reported Wednesday, this will be last Wednesday, that Idaho legislators were among the 250 state legislators from across the United States who visited Israel to participate in 50 states, One Israel Conference. So what is the point of this? That's what I want to say to you. What is the point of this? Why are we sending our state officials to Israel to do what? I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of confused. What are they going there for? The Idaho state legislators visit occurred amid the ongoing Gaza war as Israel sent ground troops and tanks into Gaza City. This week, the UN's Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory released a report stating Israel is committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Well, that's clear to anyone who pays attention to it. I mean, folks, that's just the sad truth about it. That's what is happening. You can't tell me otherwise if you're intentionally having your officials go on record saying, for the last 3 months, we have denied any type of humanitarian aid to go into this region. That's just the truth about it. You can't be depriving people of water. You can't be depriving people of medical care. You can't be killing journalists. You can't be destroying every single structure in this entire territory. And then, of course, you're saying that it's Hamas you're going after. The war is with Hamas. Well, then why are so many civilians being killed? And you can't come out and tell me, well, it's collateral damage. Civilians are going to die. This is targeted. We know that people have been waiting in food lines, that have been shot. We know people that have been traveling the great distance to get to one of these food sites that have been reduced, by the way, and been shot at, by the way, in the Morag corridor by the IDF. We know that happens. You can't tell me this isn't intentional when they're doing this. We know that the food, by and large, is being put in warehouses, located in various parts that the IDF controls in Gaza. So this whole thing's a mess, and it's intentional. And now they're talking about relocating 1.9 million people that don't want to leave, that haven't been asked to go. They're talking about relocating them someplace else, making Gaza Jewish. We know they targeted churches and killed people during church. One of the oldest Catholic churches in the whole region was bombed. We know that there's anti-Christian graffiti going on in these buildings, too. Statues of Jesus Christ decapitated. Nobody's saying a damn thing about it. Just business as usual, I guess. This is the truth about what's happening there. This is why I'm telling this to you. But now we have our state officials going to Israel to what? Come back and promote what's happening in Gaza? As not a war crime? Again, I don't know how you could look yourself in the mirror and say all this. It doesn't really make any bit of sense to me, folks. What's happening in Gaza is absolutely horrible. The world's waking up to it. And we as patriots, as Christians, as pro-life people, should be condemning what's happening too. If the fight is with Hamas, the fight is with Hamas, not the Palestinian people. But it's pretty evident what Benjamin Netanyahu wants to do. And that, of course, is Greater Israel. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this show today. I hope you'll share it with some friends. I hope you've learned a lot. And I hope you'll come back tomorrow for the next Marco Geray show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day.